So welcome. My name is Gerard van Engelen. Where's this line? Oh, there. I need to stand here. So, my name is Gerard van Engelen. I'm a DevOps engineer at Schiphol, which is one of the busiest airports in Europe. I work on the Schiphol.nl website, and I also work on a product called Trevor. And I'm going to talk about how we use Grafana for this product called Trevor. So I'm not going to bother you with how this QR code works. If you've got questions, scan it, and we'll try to answer them after this presentation. So people that know me, they know that I don't get stressed easily. But stress is not okay. And even though I don't get stressed really easily, I do get stressed when going to the airport. On my way there, thinking, will I miss my flight? I'll check my pockets 10 times if I grab my passport. And I'm not alone in this. Traveling is one of the most stressful situations for everybody in the world. And Forbes did a research on what people most worry about when traveling through an airport. So one of the things is losing luggage, and at Schiphol we did some research, and actually people are most afraid that somebody else will take their luggage. So if you get off the plane, people will literally run towards the baggage reclaim section to prevent anybody from stealing their luggage. One of the other things that I think is really interesting is that you should not make any friends at the airport, because 40% of your friends will be afraid that you'll lose them before you go to your flight. And what's even more interesting is that more people are afraid for losing their friends or their luggage than their people are afraid for losing their child. But I think losing your child is something you can make a movie about, right? We all know this one. Okay, so we can all conclude that traveling is a stressful situation, but we at Schiphol Airport, we've got your back. We've got a product called Trevor. And Trevor is a passenger experience platform which uses a modular approach to provide real-time information for travelers about their journey. So scan your boarding pass, and you know when your plane is landing, you know when your plane is departing. If you have time left, you can search for stores that meet your expectations. If you need assistance, you can click a button, somebody will come and find you. Or if you just want to have a call with somebody, click another button and you'll be connected to somebody in real time. So this product we've created to take a little bit of that stress away from our travelers. And we do that because a 1% increase in CSAT could add up to 1.5% added non-aeronautical revenues. So if you imagine that Schiphol makes 256 million euros in revenue every year, a 1% increase is significant. But only when it works, because Forbes did another research that if a technical solution doesn't work, it could affect your CSAT by 15 to 25%. And with kiosks, it's even worse, because even if you're not using a kiosk, but you're walking by it, and you see that it's not working, it could affect your state of mind. So you can imagine that it's very important for us to know if this product is actually working. With Trevor being positioned at the airport, also airside, you can imagine that it's difficult to just go and see if everything is working. And especially taking into consideration that we not only have the product Trevor at Schiphol Airport, but we also sell it to other airports around the world. So currently we have Trevor deployed at Athens, Frankfurt, Iceland, and we just received confirmation that the coming year we'll also be deploying it to Copenhagen. And we're working on airports in the US and in Africa as well. So just going out to Africa to see if your application is working might not be feasible for us. But luckily, we have Grafana coming to the rescue. I wanted to do a super grot image. I asked ChatGPT to do it, but it keeps ending up as an alligator. So, and now I saw that we have a super grot. So it's a bit of a shame that I didn't know that up front. But how do we use Grafana? Oh no, what do we need from Grafana? That's the most important question. So with Trevor being deployed all over the world, we need to store the data from our observability platform regionally, because each continent has their own local legislations. For example, boarding pass data from US airports cannot be stored in Europe, and it's the same other way around. And if for some reason an airport ends the cooperation with us, we want to be able to delete the data easily without doing difficult queries in our data sets. So we want to have a data set per customer. But we also want a single pane of glass. So we don't want our developers to have to log into system X for Amsterdam and system Y for Athens, and then remembering, oh, damn, I'm on the wrong URL. What am I doing? I'm lost. And basically having the airport experience, but then with Grafana. And obviously we want logs, metrics, tracings, and more, because we want to build awesome dashboards that help us support our customers with the Trevor product. So I already told you that we have the product on multiple airports. We want to be able to support the product cradle to grave. We want to be able to support different retention periods. What we don't want is to have to create different setups for different airports. So create an alert and then copying it 5 times over all the airports that we have. And there are a bunch more requirements, but requirements are boring, so I won't bother you with the remainder of that. So now that we know what we want, let's see how we approach this part at Schiphol. So I brought an overview of how we set this up. And let's start how we set up the observability platform from a customer perspective. So first we start with a Kubernetes cluster that runs all the applications that are required for our passenger experience platform. And besides our basic applications, we also deploy a monitoring stack. So for that we use Alloy, Loki, Prometheus, Tempo, and this drawing is a bit old. We wanted to deploy the Grafana agent on our SSUs, so the kiosks, but we ended up going for Faro. So the rest of the presentation I will not be handling Grafana agent, but Faro. And that's everything that we deploy for our customers. We deployed all of this using GitOps with ArgoCD. And we do this at scale, so for each airport that we support. And now that we have set up all the stuff that we need for an airport, we also need to set up everything that we need for our local entry into our data set. So in Amsterdam, we have a setup where we run the Grafana server and alert manager, which we also connect to OpsGenie and Slack. And that allows us to have one single entry for our monitoring solution, and also have a local version. Yeah, so that one. Okay. And after this, we have real-time insights into how our kiosks behave around the world. We have a real cost-efficient monitoring solution in regards to other monitoring platforms. And we have the ability to create awesome dashboards. So you might be thinking, okay, this is somewhat interesting or cool, but and I want this for myself, but how do we do that? So I've created a shopping list. So we need a lot of Helm charts. The KH monitoring Helm chart, the Loki, the tempo, the Prometheus stack. Then we need the Faro SDK. At Schiphol, we've deployed Grafana as an Azure managed Grafana because that allows us to set up SSO really simple. We need ArgoCD and some Terraform to dress it up. And now you might be thinking, okay, Gerard or Gerard, I know how to do grocery shoppings, but I'm not really good at cooking. I've got your back as well, because I'm going to do a demo about how you can set up the Grafana in the way that Schiphol does it, but then in a way that you can run it on a laptop or your own cluster. It doesn't really matter if you have one node or 250. I've got one setup that rules them all. Can we switch to the demo? Oh, I'll zoom in a bit. Is this readable for everyone? Okay, cool. So I already discussed that we're using ArgoCD, right? We want to deploy everything as GitOps, because if we, by accident, delete our cluster and bring it back up, we want everything to be rolled out automatically. And ArgoCD allows us to do that in a modern approach at high scale. So let's start with the KH monitoring Helm chart. We'll create a simple ArgoCD application, which we deploy on Kubernetes. We take the KH monitoring Helm chart, and we'll insert some values. And basically, if you want to do this, this is what you need to get a similar setup to Schiphol. I've left out some request limits and that sort of stuff, because otherwise it would not run on a kind cluster. But we enable the cluster metrics, we enable pod logs, we do auto-instrumentation using Bila, we enable application observability, and then we're good to go. We need some data sources, so we configure Prometheus, we configure Loki, and we configure tempo. And in the end, we need a couple of alloy collectors, the metrics, the logs, and the alloy receiver. And if you deploy, no, Brave is gone. Come on, where are you? Oh, crap. I'm an idiot. As I always say, the problem was somewhere between that wall and this screen. Okay, so we apply this to our Kubernetes cluster, and ArgoCD takes the rest from us away. So it deploys everything, config maps, pods, everything that you need to collect your OpenTelemetry data, your logs, and your traces. So first step done. Yes. Okay, second step. Deploy the Prometheus stack. I won't bother you with this application because deploying an Argo application is the same every time. We'll just go through the values a bit. So I actually needed to change this name, but for now it's my cluster name. I deploy Prometheus, and I enable the remote write receiver, because if you want to use Alloy to send metrics to Prometheus, you'll need to enable the remote write receiver. I'll deploy Grafana with an admin user with a super secret password. I hope you don't share it with other people. And I configure some data sources. So earlier I said that we use Azure Managed Grafana, but for demoing purposes, I deploy Grafana using the Prometheus stack, so I would have something to show. We deploy the alert manager, and we disable some conflicting features, because both Alloy and the Prometheus stack try to measure cube state metrics and do node exporting and that sort of stuff. So in one of each places you need to disable them. So I'll disable them in the Prometheus stack. For Loki, we just blindly copy-paste the configuration from the Loki documentation to be able to run Loki as a single binary. In this case, we're using Minio as an S3 storage backend. But if you were to use this in production, I would advise to use managed blob store like, what is it, S3 or Azure Blob Store. And then finally, we deploy Tempo. And for this, I also just blindly copied the configuration from the documentation, which is okay. It works. And once we're done with this, we're all set up to do all of our backend observability. But Trevor is not only a backend application, it's also a front-end application. So to be able to monitor how Trevor is working at the client side, we're using Faro. And for that, you need to set up a separate receiver. I think the KH monitoring team is working on implementing this as a feature for the KH monitoring Helm chart. But for now, you just have to deploy a separate Faro receiver with some configuration to send the logs to a Loki backend and a trace backend. And then you're good to go, given that you instrument your front-end application. So what do we have to do at the front-end side of things? Let's do a little bit of zooming here. Same size. Okay. First, we need to configure Faro to be able to send logs and metrics to a Faro backend. And in this case, we are sending the Faro metrics of Faro traces and logs back to the Next.js application, because that allows us to be able to ping the application. And if we don't get some information back from the front end, we know that the kiosk is actually not working. So to be able to support that, we use an API that is managed via Next.js. I won't bother you too much with this code because you can look at it after this presentation. And then finally, we'll add the front-end observability element to our layout, so it's available to all the pages that we serve via our Next.js app. And then you are good to go. So this is a beautiful Next.js application that I've stolen from the Grafana website. It's an example on how you can set up Next.js. And if you look at the network traffic, you can see that Faro is actually sending, or that the Next.js application is actually sending Faro information back to our backend. And if we then go to Grafana, and we click on Explore, and we look for the next front end, we can see that there are actually traces ending up in our system. So because this Next.js application is sending these requests every now and then, we can see that our application is working. So we have alerts set up that if one of our kiosks is not sending this information, that we should send somebody to look at that kiosk, because it could be that there's a firewall rule in place, or that somebody hacked it and then threw away the page. It happens, unfortunately. Luckily, not for the Trevor product, but we see it in, I think somebody played Doom at the kiosk at McDonald's. So you understand that it's important to keep track of what people are doing with your product, right? And we can also drill down in other observability stuff, like metrics. Just click Start, boom. All the metrics that we need to monitor our application, and the same applies for logs. And luckily enough, everything in the demo worked, so we can switch back to the slides. And I'll click through these slides, because if the demo didn't work, I had to bore you with slides that just showed the same as what I just showed on the screen. So I hope this gave you some insights on how we took our approach in observability. And if you like to stay in touch, I'm available at LinkedIn. If you want to see more of what I just showed, you can find this this repo on my personal GitHub account. And of course, I hope to see you all at the all attendee party in the Museum of Pop Culture tonight.